difficult on an event like this because it's so
Yeah.
packed. But if we do end up having, even if it's 4 or 5 minutes at the end, then I'll just give people the opportunity. I'll try and keep an eye on chat as well.
Yeah.
And I've got various links that I've shared with you all beforehand that I'll be posting up. So I'll put them up towards the end of your slots rather than beginning, otherwise people can get a bit distracted. But
Yeah.
I'll so feel free to say, as you're speaking, you can say that there'll be some things going up during this session to refer to things that you've mentioned. And I believe, in fact, Jane, that report, the impact report, was it launched today? Was it the
Yes, the impact report was launched today, actually.
All right.
It's 5 years today since we first gathered to form Ensuring Women's Futures. So
yeah, it's a really interesting initiative, Guy. I'm not sure how familiar you are, Guy. It's a really interesting example. I mean, you'll hear more from Jane later about how the insurance industry is. Well, how I describe it in an elevator pitch, 5 or 6 words, Jane, is that the insurance industry's response to gender equality. How would you characterize it? Yes, perhaps.
Yes, or I would say it's broader. It's using techniques of risk management to identify interventions for systematic change, of which the insurance industry is one of them.
Oh, interesting.
So really interesting. And again, guys, it's another made in the UK product that I think at times HMG needs a little bit of prompting at a Commonwealth level, but we've tried to brought different examples together, from the work that you've done, the work that the insurance industry has done. There are some other initiatives around trade and enterprise that Noreen will touch upon as well. And then also on the local government side. So hopefully that'll give a flavour as well. I mean, the Common Local Government Forum are we have around 90 of these. We refer to them as accredited organisations. So they're directly recognised by member governments. And so they'll be referring to the work that they do amongst others. In fact, there are a few others. Noreen, I think you mentioned, aren't you, in your remarks, you're going to be mentioning the Commonwealth Girls Education Fund, aren't you?
I can, and that has added another few words for me, but I will be mentioning them. And in fact, I've stuck the logo behind me as well. So we are an accredited charity. We educate girls around the Commonwealth. So it's worth plugging them a bit.
You've been going for what, 50 years or something like that?
We went through our 50th anniversary a year and a half ago. It's a very small charity, but we sponsor girls throughout their whole secondary education. So it's a very intimate charity because we're with them for 5 years. And it's good, opening doors.
Great, okay. So that's great. And I'm just going to, just before we start, just make sure I know how to do the share screen. Yeah, no, that's fine.
We have audience already with us.
We have some, and Lucy's just joined us as well. Hi, Lucy, and I see Nosheen's here as well. Hi, Nosheen.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Lucy. Hi, everyone.
Hi,
so
everyone.
Lucy, the Deputy Secretary General of the Commonwealth Local Government Forum. So you'll be up a bit later on, Lucy, and I think we've got a couple of other Commonwealth organisations that I'll also highlight their work. So I'll pick that piece up, Lucy, don't worry. I've had a couple of messages come in to me. So I'll pick up that piece at the end. And then towards the end, we've got a couple of goodwill messages from, in fact, I think, Guy, we've actually engineered the first joint statement from the Biden administration with the UK government on gender equality, because we've got messages from both the US and the UK, their senior government representatives in Kenya, High Commissioner Ambassador, about the importance of gender equality. So
fantastic.
We're multilateralism, Guy, is on the move forward. it may not have been in the last 4 years, but it's beginning to pick up momentum now. We'll do what we can. Absolutely, yes. We'll because I think that's great. And so I think we're just going to start in a couple of minutes. I'll just, I'm sure others will be joining. We've got a few people joining here. We are obviously going to be making the recording available to all of you later. And I know that there have been a lot of people who've expressed interest in listening to this. So there obviously will be people listening to it afterwards. So we know that it'll get wider visibility than just those watching now. So what I'll do is as 2 minutes to 4, I'm just going to start recording, so I'm just ready to go, and make sure I've got my videos lined up as well, which I think I have, and just, I've got my first video there, second, third, okay, excellent. So I'm all set to go. Let me just press record. People coming in all the time, and we will just make a start in a moment. I'll just press record there. Stephanie, you need to give me permission to record, Stephanie, if you're there. Yeah, Stephanie, if you can just give me permission to record. I know that you're also recording, but then I can do recording at my end as well.
You're already recording, Arif.
We're already recording. Okay, so that's fine. I mean, Stephanie was asking me to also record, but that's fine. As long as we're recording, that's fine. Okay, so let's make a, it's just coming up to the hour. So, right, okay, so off we go. So let me say something that I can only say once every few years, which is happy International Women's Day and happy Commonwealth Day, because it's a curious coincidence that they end up being on the same day. National Women's Day of the 8th of March, and Commonwealth Day on the first Monday in March, and they both coincide this year. And I think particularly poignant that they do, given the significant impact on women of COVID-19, but also the key role that women are playing in not just the current period, but I think in the recovery that we will increasingly see, hopefully moving forward across the Commonwealth and beyond. So it's my great pleasure today to invite you to join us for this session. We've got a full panel ahead of us, and our focus today is to bring a spotlight to some of the initiatives from the UK during the time when the UK government has hosted the UK government hosted the Heads of Government meeting in April 2018. That was the largest ever gathering, I think, of heads of government in the UK ever. I think 46 of them showed up, and out of that emerged a number of initiatives, some led by government, some led by civil society in the UK, some by the private sector. So we're going to be giving a spotlight to that. The other thing we're going to be highlighting is some of the work of Commonwealth organisations themselves. They do a great deal of good, particularly around the area of gender, and we're going to be highlighting some of their work as well. So without further ado, I'm just going to begin very briefly by showing you, and I'm very conscious we have the Advertising Standards Authority here, so I'll make sure that I'm duly diligent to all the requirements, but also I'll make it, hopefully it's dynamic, because I know, Guy, the advertising industry in the UK is one of the best in the world, so we want to make sure we maintain that. So what am I advertising? Well, I'm advertising the Commonwealth. That's my advertising pitch for the next few minutes. So let me just begin by doing the most basic thing, which is just sharing a screen with sound, which I have just done there. So that's great. Now let me just make sure I don't go to any embarrassing emails and go to the right place to go to here. And let me just play. Yes, that was the Commonwealth video that was produced, in fact, for the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. And I'm just going to turn very quickly to a key initiative that was brought out. This is actually, for some reason, I don't know why it doesn't have any sound, this piece. It's only a couple of minutes, but it highlights the connectivity agenda, which is the name given by the UK and member states to the initiative around trade connectivity. And it just quickly play this. It's without sound, so don't need to do anything at your end. It's purely the way it is. Right, so that's it. Very short. I mean, that's the digital connectivity agenda, and there's also a piece that also talks about gender, and in fact, there is the digital connectivity cluster that was referred to as work that's led by the UK and South African governments jointly, and other clusters are led by other governments. But let me just briefly close by playing this and bringing it right into today. To play, so let me just come off that and come back into where I need to be, which is simply this. Let me just stop sharing screen. Yeah, so I think in relation to what I'd like to cover today, the first thing really is to let me just yeah, let me just go from there. So, well, yeah, so I think the next thing I'd like to do is to go straight to our panel from here. And I'm going to begin by inviting Guy up. So Guy Parker from the Standards Authority, which is the UK organisation that is the regulator for advertising standards, and the important work that the ASA has been doing the last 2-3 years now on gender stereotyping in ads. Parker, very warm welcome to you. Happy International Women's Day and Commonwealth Day, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's a real honour to be invited onto today's panel to talk about gender stereotyping in ads. Chief Executive of the Advertising Standards Authority. We're the UK regulator of ads in all media, including online. And we make sure that ads are legal, decent, honest and truthful. And although much of our time is spent making sure ads aren't misleading people, we also do a lot of important work making sure they're not offensive or harmful. And harm is the important word in the context of gender stereotyping in ads. We began reviewing gender stereotyping in ads in 2016. So about 4 or 5 years ago, we'd always tackled ads that encouraged gender discrimination. We'd always stopped ads that encouraged gender discrimination prior to 2016. But we felt that the time was right for us to look again at this issue to see whether or not our regulation was in the right place. And a quick spoiler alert, we found out that in most respects it was, but in one important respect it wasn't, and we needed to tighten up. And I'll explain what that area was in a second. We looked at, in terms of the review that we conducted, we looked at the legislative and public policy context. We looked at advertising industry initiatives. We looked at international advertising regulation to see what we could learn from that. We took evidence from academics. We conducted a literature review. We got feedback from stakeholder workshops that we conducted, and we commissioned and ran an important piece of public research as well. And we did a lot of thinking about where we were drawing the line and what needed to change. And we concluded, this won't surprise you at all, but we concluded that gender stereotypes have got the potential to cause harm by inviting or reinforcing assumptions about adults and children that restrict how we see ourselves, and just as importantly, how other people see us. Now, obviously, that matters at a personal level. Harmful gender stereotyping reduces our opportunities. It can have a narrowing effect on who we think we are, what we think we can be, what other people think we can achieve in life. Think of gender stereotypes that caring roles are for women, for example. But it doesn't just matter at the personal level. It matters at the societal level. It matters for our economy. We've got a gender pay gap in the UK of 15.5%. Only 5% of the CEOs of FTSE 250 companies are women. And the pipeline's not looking great either. Only 35% of UK STEM students in higher education are women, and that drops to only 19% when you look at computer science and engineering students. And the UK economy has got a shortage of both. And of course, advertising is only one of the many different factors that can promote harmful gender stereotypes, but it's the one that we as the UK ad regulator felt we could influence. And our review, all of those different aspects of it that I talked about a minute or two ago, our review and our thinking showed that we needed to take a tougher line on ads that featured stereotypical gender roles or characteristics, which through the content or the context of the ad had the potential to cause harm to people. And that included ads that mocked people for not conforming to gender stereotypes. So on the back of that evidence base, we introduced a new rule into the advertising codes, which says that ads mustn't include gender stereotypes that are likely to cause harm. So a very simple rule. Just as importantly, in fact, more importantly, in terms of helping business stay the right side of the line, we accompanied that new rule with formal guidance. Of course, it would be inappropriate and unrealistic for a regulator like us to prevent ads from, for example, depicting a woman doing cleaning or the shopping, or a man doing DIY, or to prevent ads from depicting a woman showing her emotion or a man being stoical. But the rule and the guidance are very much designed to stop ads that go one step further, ads that suggest that those sorts of roles and characteristics are uniquely associated with one gender, the only option available to one gender, are rarely carried out or displayed by the other gender. So think of an ad that shows the dad and the kids messing up the house, with the mum having the sole responsibility of cleaning it up, or an ad that implies it's a woman's job to do the shopping, or an ad that suggests an activity is inappropriate for a girl because it's a boy's activity. And this isn't just about girls and women. This is about boys and men too. So think too of an ad that features a doofus dad failing to undertake a simple parental task because he's a man. And this is particularly important at the moment, given the state of people's mental health. An ad that shows a boy being told to man up and not show his emotion. All of those examples that I talked through are hypothetical examples of an ad that was the wrong side of the line, and that we are now taking action against under this new rule. And since the rule went live in summer 2019, we banned ads by VW. They had an ad that contrasted men engaged in extraordinary adventurous activities. That was the subject of 3/4 of the ad, the first 3 scenes of the ad. And then the final scene showed a woman sitting on a bench next to a pram, reading a book, as the VW car drove past. And the advertiser's intention with this ad was to contrast the adventurousness of the car with the fact that it has a really quiet engine. So you could see what they were trying to do, but unfortunately, the decisions they made in casting the ad also promoted the gender stereotype that active adventure is for men and passive caring is for women. And I think that casting was unintentional, but doesn't that say it all about the societal challenge that we face in tackling gender stereotyping? It's deeply ingrained. Another example is an ad by Mondelez that depicted a couple of dads as pretty hapless. This was an ad for Philadelphia, their cheese spread. It was intended to be a funny ad. I didn't think it was very funny, but it was intended to be a funny ad. And those who would have found it funny because it relied on the trope that that men are inattentive parents. But the fact that it was a joke didn't get the advertisers off. And the third example, a poster by a search engine optimization company that featured the patronizing headline, "You do the girl boss thing, we'll do the SEO thing," which we thought reinforced the impression that a female boss was a novelty and less serious than a man occupying the same sort of position. But our work has mostly not been about regulatory interventions. What's been most heartening has been witnessing the desire of the vast majority of UK advertisers, UK brands, to tackle gender stereotyping without us having to tell them to do it. Of course, this is increasingly expected by their customers, particularly their younger customers. So there's a pretty compelling commercial logic to them responding. And Organised Society continue to keep the issue high on the agenda with their important December report on gender stereotyping in childhood. And I should declare an interest here because Ella Smiley, who rather brilliantly led our gender stereotyping project, then left us and joined the Fawcett Society, where she rather brilliantly led that review and that report. My experience, including on the leadership team of the UK chapter of the Unstereotype Alliance, is that more often than not, the reason why most UK brands are tackling gender stereotyping without us having to tell them to is because they feel passionately about it. They may have personally experienced the harmful effects of gender stereotyping. They may have daughters and sons whom they want to protect, but whatever their personal motivation, they know it's the right thing to do. And from our point of view, regulation is always much easier when businesses buy into it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And I think there's a lot there that you've outlined. And I think what comes across very strongly, I thought very interesting, is the different industry sectors you've highlighted. Automotive, IT, and I mean, I think this is clearly the message that it's not just confined to one particular area. Also, I think what came across very, very much from what your remarks were the process, not just the outcome, but the how you got there, evidence-based, working with industry. I mean, you are the regulator, but you're working with industry as part of that consultative process and trying to get a consensus around this. And sometimes it's unconscious, but I think that's really, really instructive and important. And of course, building on other initiatives. I think the Sherry Blair Foundation this month are launching a report which is looking at gender stereotyping in the tech sector. So there's clearly momentum in this area, and we at the Commonwealth Business Women's Network absolutely want to take this forward, and we will certainly try and pick up doing so from this meeting today. So thank you very much, Guy, for setting the scene so powerfully and effectively as you just have. So I'm just going to, not quite Monty Python, Guy, but for some not quite completely different, but quite different, to talk about gender stereotyping. I'm going to ask Jane Portas to come in here and talk about the work, because the work that you were referring to, Guy, started, was that 3 years ago? About 3 years ago?
It was 2016. It was 2016 actually. So it's nearer 5, yeah.
Nearer 5. So I think in that same period, not exactly, but Jane will enlighten us. There's also been important work that's been going on in the insurance industry under the strapline Ensuring Women's Futures. And Jane, who had a distinguished career working in for a big four firm. I'm not sure, Jane, you want me to say which one, but you can by all means say if you'd like to. But also was really absolutely at the heart of driving this work on ensuring women's futures. Jane, delighted you're able to join us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, everybody. So a really interesting talk as well, and I'm going to pick up on some of those stereotyping issues as I go through. So I'm going to share my screen with you, if I may. Here we are. Can you all see my presentation?
Yep. Yep, very clearly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, so my background is I spent my career in the Big Four, but actually my background is in risk management and regulation. So I'm sort of the architect of this program, and I'm going to talk to you about our journey and where we are now. So why we established Ensuring Women's Futures, how we designed the program, the approach taken, what we've learned, what's changed as a result, or what's changing, I would say, as a result of some of our work. And we issued our impact report today. And then why is it relevant to the Commonwealth, and what type of organisations might be interested in this type of initiative? And I've just got a picture on the right hand side of, we held one of our launch events was at the IMAX Theatre, and as you can see we had a full house for the launch of our manifesto last year. So the programme was founded by a small group of us in the insurance profession, but with the aim of closing women's financial resilience gap. It is a volunteer organisation convened by the Chartered Insurance Institute, as it has a public trust remit, but it's very much a programme that has engaged the market, and I call a market task force. That task force has comprised people from not only financial services, but sort of society and policy. And it's underpinned by what I'm going to talk quite a bit about, this risks in life research, which I myself contributed as well to the programme, which really looks at life journeys and looks at how we bring together money and life, including issues such as gender stereotyping, and how that impacts financial futures and creates this big financial gap. And all the data is driven out of ONS data. So this is the approach. So we have three aspects to the approach at the bottom. We're looking at women's risks in life in society. So this is all women in life, and doing this risks in life analysis. And then we're thinking about what that means for the women who work in risk, so employer who are employed, but obviously this is could be applied much more broadly than just the insurance profession. And then women's risk solutions. So what role can financial services play in supporting closing this gap? So then we have the three underpinning research studies, and then our market task force. And at the right hand side, I've put our two manifesto reports. And so my research really identified that there are 12 financial risks facing women through the life course. I actually gave them all a name because I wanted everybody to remember them. And then I came up with a framework called 6 Moments That Matter, and a framework of interventions. And the thing about the moments that matter is that they're relevant to everybody. So not just for women, but actually for men, if we're really talking about levelling up. And the moments happen at different stages during all of our lives, and they interact with these risks in life to create our financial life journey. And so we will each have different moments that matter at different stages. And of course, as the pandemic has made all of our lives less linear, and into the future as we live longer and work longer, then actually these moments that matter will become even more relevant for all of us. And of course, one of the big challenges that women face is their lives are very significantly less linear than men's, for reasons you all know. So this framework on the right hand side, it's really how we get the moments that matter to work with this framework of interventions to really make systematic change, getting the right organisations with the right authority to make the right interventions through the life course. So what I'm just going to show you, I'm not going to go through this, but I will share afterwards. So this slide sets out, using those perils and pitfalls, the financial life journey in the UK of using ONS statistics. And as you can see, patterns build up as you go through life. If you look at the middle part, you can see the gap widens, whether it's because of stereotyping leading to an apprenticeship gap, whether it's leading to a graduate gap, a gender pay gap, and then a gap in who's doing the caring, a gap then obviously arising in pensions as a result of women's lower earnings, just 59% of men's, and then that leading to a gap in later life and ability to care for oneself in later life. And I've plotted this many times in many different scenarios, but actually this is what this life journey looks like post-COVID, and what I've been able to show is how the gap widens. And actually, just to go back to the comments that were made before, actually as part of this have studied British social attitudes and how the social attitude links to some of these gaps. So gender stereotyping, it's really fantastic to hear that work. So what I will do now is I will play this short presentation, which is our manifesto. So hopefully you can hear it.
Ensuring Women's Futures is a programme led by the Chartered Insurance Institute aimed at improving women's financial resilience to help secure a better future for all. We formed a market task force comprising firms from across insurance and personal finance to collaborate with wider business and society to become the catalyst for change. Our research identifies a series of perils and pitfalls that women face throughout their lives and impact their financial resilience. Our manifesto outlines 5 pillars of activity that we will focus on to drive change both within the profession and in partnership with wider society. Women's pension deficit is the product of many complex societal and financial obstacles that accumulate throughout women's lives. We will develop proposals and open dialogue with government, the profession, employers, and wider society to improve women's pension provision throughout the life course. But it's not just about pensions or older women. We will empower women to engage with their financial risks throughout life, enabling younger women in particular to develop their risk awareness so they can make more informed financial choices. In order to improve females' access, experience, and outcomes, we will develop a professional standard that promotes good practice within the profession and helps customers to understand how our solutions and services respond in their moments that matter. We need to do more as a profession to improve our own gender balance by developing good employee practice that empowers talent of any gender and opportunity to realise a rewarding career while balancing caring and professional roles. So we will develop inclusive, flexible working practices that incorporate financial considerations for those in the insurance and personal finance profession. And we will positively shift societal support for women in building their financial resilience and independence, using insights from securing the financial future of the next generation. And we can't do this alone. Please.
So I'll move on and show you
Ensuring Women's Futures,
if I'm allowed to. And this is our manifesto. So what we did was actually take the research findings, identify where those biggest gaps are in the moments that matter, looked at trends in the future life journeys of women and men, so that actually we could identify interventions that could level up. So we have interventions that start at the beginning of a young woman's life around the types of study choices she makes, to influence the type of jobs women get to encourage women to be participating in pensions, for pensions to be designed in equal ways that support equal pension provision, to support low earners, part-time workers and flexible workers to level up part-time and flexible work and shared parental leave. Also going along to the one who's new parent facing a life event, to really look at the risks in life and what the insurance profession and the wider financial services profession can do. And then actually also, when I'm now looking on the pillar, which is the 50s divorcing mum, is really how do we get women to engage with money and life throughout life? And really, how do we make financial guidance relevant to women's life journeys? And finally, we make reference to needing to level up care, how it's paid, how it's valued, who needs it, who does it. But really critically across the bottom, the need for data, life journey and life journey approaches. So this is where we got to, and this is our journey, and we're now at the right-hand side of our journey, and this is our impact report launched to date. So if you look at the blue slide, you can see actually this is a wholly volunteer organisation, I should say. So we've all given our time personally to the organisation. And you can see that actually we've managed to engage quite a lot of people in society. We're very pleased that we've got a number of leading employers signed up to our financial flexible working pledge, which embeds financial well-being in employees' journeys, and also in our inclusive customer pledge, which is sort of inclusive by design customer approaches. And along the bottom are the various parties that we've engaged with on our journey. And where we actually have been successful in making some change. And in particular, we're really delighted that the Money and Pensions Service have now included gender as part of their national financial wellbeing strategy. But I will leave you with that to talk through. And really, what have we learned from this? Well, firstly, that actually using the evidence and the risk management techniques has really given credibility to our work. Engaging people on the risks in life and the moments that matter. So really talking to people about money and life has really stirred a lot of responses from individuals. We created a network of ambassadors that really helped amplify the programme, and we've obviously had a huge commitment from people to be able to support this work. And now really, I think it is a very broad programme, and now I think is really an opportunity for the insurance industry. And we're seeing a lot of activity now, really how we can take this forward. And I think for the Commonwealth, I think there's some really interesting angles really, because obviously risks in life are changing, but also in the Commonwealth financial markets and systems are developing. And I have a regulatory background, so I can see how the regulation can build up, but actually there's an opportunity to build and develop those markets in a way that's consistent with inclusion. So very relevant for people from a policy, regulatory, financial services background in particular. So I will stop sharing with you now.
Thank you very much, Jane, for that. And again, what comes across very strongly, I thought that the life journey, absolutely fascinating. And I think the way that you've been able to contextualize it with COVID, I think is absolutely, I mean, that is the key, that is the stay awake at night question right now, isn't it? Whether you're in Whitehall or Westminster, you know, what is going to be the longer-term impact? And we just don't know, but clearly we need to begin to start thinking about it, and you very powerfully set that out. I think what also comes across a bit like, you know, with Guy's work at the ASA, very much evidence-based, research-based approach, you know, very much, and also I think also working with stakeholders in that joined up way, which I think is so important. And I think you're absolutely right with the Commonwealth. I think there is clearly an appetite. It's sometimes forgotten that you know, Paris climate change agreement would never have happened had it not been for the Commonwealth. You know, it was Commonwealth countries, 54 of them, that arrived on the same page at the beginning of the week in Paris, and they were already there. That was the base. So I think you're absolutely right in building consensus in areas, whether it's around gender equality, whether it's around, you know, other areas as well. The Commonwealth actually can be a very powerful glue. I don't want to be too political, but I will say this much: it's sometimes a bit easier if the you know, if the Russians and Chinese and other big countries aren't in the room, and you've got a smaller gathering of countries that can just get on with talking about the substantive issues. And I think that certainly does have an impact, I think, in the Commonwealth context. This is my own personal view on that. Okay, so having said that, let's then come across to, we've heard about, you know, the advertising industry and some of the work there. We've heard about the insurance industry, ensuring women's future, really powerful messages there. One of the things that in the last 2 or 3 years from the UK, there have been a number of initiatives, and I'm just going to invite Noreen to join us next. Now, Noreen Cesaro, who is, and of course, I have to acknowledge this because she's a very proud Maltese as well as a UK citizen. Malta, one of our 3 Commonwealth countries in Europe. So Noreen is involved in the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Women in Enterprise. And Noreen, thank you so much for joining us today. And I know that you'll be saying something about 3 things in particular. You'll be saying something about the work of the Alison Rose Review of Female Entrepreneurship, which of course came out in the last 2 to 3 years. Also the She Trades Initiative, which is the UK government branded initiative on she trades in the Commonwealth. And then also thirdly, the Hampton Alexander Review, which was all about increasing the representation of women in senior leadership positions and on boards of our largest companies, the FTSE 350. And I believe that latest, their latest and final report came out just a few days ago. So Noreen, the floor is yours. A warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Arif. Actually, I am really proud to be here both as a UK citizen and a member of the Commonwealth from Malta. But today I am going to share the initiatives and progress on a number of programs that have been running across on women's economic empowerment and in leadership, both in the UK and across the Commonwealth. As an entrepreneur and having previously worked myself within corporate and private enterprise, as well as championing women's economic empowerment, I am speaking about the challenges we face as women leaders and entrepreneurs. Last year, we saw another layer added to that, the pandemic. And while many businesses, especially MESMEs, were quick to pivot, many female entrepreneurs around the Commonwealth were not that fortunate. And even here in the UK, the pandemic actually compounded the difficulties and expanded the obstacles which faced many women in starting, continuing, and actually scaling their businesses. Research by NatWest found that last year, and this was actually just out a few days ago, more than 3/4 of women business owners found it stressful managing their businesses during the pandemic. This is compared to the 55% of male entrepreneurs. Women were also 17% more likely to struggle balancing business demands with family and personal life. It was interesting, Jane, seeing how this fits into the data which you've just shared and what Guy was saying. They match very nicely together. And today on this International Women's Day and Commonwealth Day, and as we approach the final days of the UK's term as Commonwealth Chair, I'm going to spotlight some of the initiatives which have been spearheaded by the UK on women's economic empowerment in trade, investment and leadership. So let's kick off with the enterprise, which UK is actually the startup capital of Europe. And yet, only 1 in 3 UK entrepreneurs is female, and only 5.6% of UK women run their own companies. Compare this to the 15% of women in Canada, almost 11% of women in the US, and over 9% of women in Australia and the Netherlands. Now, I need to factor this that we do not have proper disaggregated data, and in fact, Jane, you've just referred to that, so we don't really know the actual number across the MESME population of women entrepreneurs. The Rose Review into Female Entrepreneurship, which was released actually on Women's Day in March 2019, reported that female entrepreneurs were underrepresented in high-value sectors such as manufacturing, CIT, and financial services. There were a number of barriers which they said were keeping them back, and this included the access to funding, the risk awareness, the primary care responsibilities, and the perception of skills. As a member of the UK APPG for Women and Enterprise, we've been studying these challenges for the past 5 years. And in fact, in 2019, just 4 months after the Rose Review was out, we issued our first report, which was the Future of Female Entrepreneurship Pathways to Progress. Under the leadership of Chair Tracy, MP, and with representation from government, private enterprise groups and organisations, this report set a baseline on the experiences faced by female entrepreneurs. We see the potential growth of women-owned businesses as an area of economic opportunity, especially as the UK is a now new trading nation. This is despite the fact that women-owned businesses currently secure significantly less than 5% of corporate and public sector contracts. So there's much work to do. The Enterprise Research Centre had identified money, markets, and management as the key hurdles, and our first report, in fact, focused on 3 areas, which were the access to finance, business support, and international trade. As I said, the lack of gender disaggregated data is a recurring theme, and this is not only a UK issue, but common to much of the countries within the Commonwealth and actually around the world. In parallel to this work, I was also involved in an immense 5-year initiative led by the business women's network Savitas. We shared our work with the APPG and the Rose Report, and late last year, we launched the Savitas NatWest Economic Blueprint White Paper, which we also circulated to government along with private and third sector organisations. The Alison Rose Review of Female Entrepreneurship was actually commissioned by the UK government, and it shed renewed light on barriers faced by women starting and growing businesses. And this included, as we've been talking, lower access to finance, where women's average starting capital was 50% below men's, different risk appetite, with women citing 55% showing fear in terms of starting a business alone. The perceived lack of skills and experience, where women were less likely to say they have the skills to start a business. Disproportionate childcare responsibilities, and these came really to the fore with COVID, where we've had to take on more than our fair share, where women were spending 60% more time on childcare than men, and the lack of sponsorship and role models. The report put forward recommendations, which was meant to unlock 250 billion worth of economic value existing within the UK. These were accepted by the government, which set out an ambition to increase women entrepreneurs by half in the UK by 2030. Earlier this year, just a few weeks ago, they actually reported on the progress. I'm not going to go into details, but the details can be shared in the report, which Arif is sharing the links. Within international trade, as an APPG, we found similar concerns to those mentioned. Access to the international markets for women-owned businesses is hampered by limitations in the existing knowledge, tools, and supporting infrastructures available. Most of the dedicated trade programs focus on logistics rather than providing an understanding of the way international markets are governed or structured, and the impact this has on women-owned businesses. The rise of e-commerce, whether directly or indirectly, is changing the landscape for many accidental female exporters. Online trading has moved center stage, and digital platforms and marketplaces are providing the international opportunities. With a lack of supporting infrastructure and data, such trade is difficult to identify, support, and monitor nationally. As in the Rose Review, there is a lack of visibility amongst female role models trading internationally, and many tend to set up businesses in sectors they know and they are comfortable with, mostly home industries. What is different are the challenges rising from culture norms and expectations, which are creating the issues and barriers. At that time, we made a call for more formal and informal gender-specific signposting of export-related support and in setting standards internationally. There are countries within the Commonwealth that ensure women-owned businesses have a foothold in international markets. And by working with them, the UK will open doors for women-owned businesses to extend their markets. This brings me nicely onto the She Trades Commonwealth programme. The She Trades Commonwealth is one such initiative funded by the UK Department for International Development and part of the ITC, the International Trade Centre's She Trades. Launched in 2018 during the UK's term as Chair in Office of the Commonwealth, it supports economic growth and job creation in the Commonwealth, focused specifically on Bangladesh, Kenya, Ghana, and Nigeria. In each country, it was concentrating on sectors where there are significant opportunities for delivering economic returns for women entrepreneurs and with the high export potential, such as agriculture, services, textile, and clothing. The program is building competitiveness through training, coaching, mentoring, and connecting them to the international markets. It's also supported and works with business support organizations and private sectors. The funding for this program is coming to an end at the end of this month. And whilst there has been significant progress which has been delivered during its launch, including training and mentoring for 3,000 plus women-owned businesses, supporting the creation of well over 3,000 jobs, and generating more than 19.5 million in sales and over 118.8 million of sales leads. This is fantastic progress. As I said, funding had been extended until the end of this month, and then they will continue to see how they're going to build on the results and focus on the long-term integration and sustainability of the women-owned businesses through the She Trades Outlook, which is the online tool launched last year. Looking at women in leadership and boards, last year, we saw women play a leading role during the crises in our families, communities, economies, and workplaces. Yet, we're still very largely absent from decision-making roles in public or private enterprises. Within the Commonwealth, women remain underrepresented in leadership roles across all sectors. A commissioned report for the last SHOGM showed that 16 Commonwealth countries had reached a benchmark of 30% of board positions held by women. The study, which was the second of its kind, outlined the gender leadership gap across public, private, and political sectors. In 2018, the UK's percentage of women on boards had increased since 2015, when it was only 27%. And across the Commonwealth, the overall percentage of women on boards had increased slightly from 23% to 25% in 2018 over a period of 2 years. So when the Hampton-Alexander Review launched in 2016 to encourage UK-listed companies to appoint more women to boards and senior leadership positions, it did so against a business backdrop dominated by men. Since then, the annual review has covered the progress of female representation in these positions. The review actually built on the success of voluntary business-led approach of the Davies Review for women on boards, extending scope to include the FTSE 350 executive committees and direct reports to the executive committees. There was a lack of public disclosure on gender performance at senior levels, particularly in the FTSE 250. That year, there was a call to action for all stakeholders. 5 years on, we have progress, although there is still a long way to go before we see a significant increase in women, especially from BAME backgrounds, on boards, in executive committees and leadership. In this fifth and final year review, women in the FTSE 250 leadership roles have increased by almost 20%, falling just short of the target. And women now hold a third of board position in the UK's top public companies almost a year sooner than expected. Success. They've had some successes, such as the exceeded 33% target for women on boards and many more women in leadership roles. This progress has been achieved entirely through voluntary and business-led approach. Now we have a stronger supply of experienced women leaders. There's more openings in career paths and opportunities for senior women. We've got some deeper insights into workplace barriers and in leadership roles. And the term itself has now evolved into a core business topic. We're fully harnessing the support of investors and other stakeholders, and we can see the diversity on boards and in leadership becoming a base expectation. On the flip side, there still is more work to do. We need to increase that number. We need to increase the appointment rate of women, which still lags behind men. 60% of roles are still going to men. And there's still several all-male executive committees and boards where there is the one-and-done mindset. And the gender say gap obviously continues with the predominance of male voices in businesses. I'm much more detailed because I am conscious of time. However, before I close, I want to throw the spotlight on two other initiatives which have progressed women's economic empowerment here in the UK. As a trustee of the Commonwealth Girls Education Fund, where we sponsored the secondary education of hundreds of poor but able girls, we know that our work is opening doors and creating the safe futures. And in fact, we're very proud to say that despite the challenge of the global pandemic, many of our girls have successfully passed their national exams and are now aspiring to higher education. That is a really great success. And I'm also proud to announce that we are shortly launching OIT here in the UK. OIT is the Organisation for Women in International Trade, which will support women trading internationally with knowledge share, networking, and access to markets. It's a part of the much larger global Women in International Trade, so we are automatically putting ourselves on the global map. I am delighted that this is imminent and that together with Savitas and our strategic partners, including the Commonwealth Businesswomen and GEM, we look forward to growing our trading strength as a new trading nation strongly represented by women business leaders. I hand the floor back to you, Arif. I think I have done very well.
Yes, I think you've done very well. I think not only is a masterclass there in what the UK has done in the last 2-3 years, but also I think quite honest in acknowledging some of the challenges there. I think the 50% reduced, I mean, the startup financing, 50% disparity was quite extraordinary, really. I mean, that's just one of the many statistics you were highlighting, but I think it's important in a cohesive way to, as you pointed out, the progress on women in leadership in FTSE 350, and I suspect probably, Guy, probably the advertising spend in the UK probably comes largely from the FTSE 350 in terms of the largest corporates, but significant progress. But also, I think on trade, it was interesting that when the heads of government meeting took place, and you'll remember this, Noreen, I know you were there as well in the business forum, the first ever meeting to acknowledge that trade wasn't gender neutral by heads of government was actually when they came to London. And there's been significant momentum, not least, in fact, with the appointment of the first woman Director General of the World Trade Organization from a Commonwealth country, from Nigeria, and Dr. Ngozi. So I think the point that you've been highlighting absolutely to the fore. And as you were closing, you pinpointed the work of the Commonwealth Girls Education Fund. And we wanted also to use this opportunity today in our remaining few minutes to also spotlight the work of Commonwealth organizations and Commonwealth accredited organizations. One of the key points of emphasis that the UK government has brought, I think, during its time as chair in office, is to remind us that the Commonwealth isn't just about the bureaucrats. It isn't just about the governments either. It's also about the civil society organizations. It's about the educators, the people, the nurses, the people, the journalists. There are 100 of the, almost close to 100 of these networks, and there's also one for local government. So it's a bit like there's an app for that. In the Commonwealth, we have something for that. There's even one for beekeepers. So you name it, we have one. But on local government, I'm very pleased that Lucy Slack, the Deputy Secretary General of the Commonwealth Local Government Forum, is joining us today. And I'm going to invite her to say something before I come back to another example from a Commonwealth organisation that's done some great work in the last couple of years. But Lucy, a warm welcome to you, and the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Arif. And let me join you in wishing everybody not just a happy Women's Day, but also a happy Commonwealth Day. It's a really important day in all of our calendars for those of us who are kind of in the Commonwealth. And I think the Commonwealth is an organisation which has a lot to offer to many of the kind of sectors and the areas that we've been discussing today. And I think some of the shared values and the shared kind of concepts that we're all very familiar with in the Commonwealth give this kind of a meeting and this kind of a discussion a real resonance. Very quickly, our organisation brings together ministries of local governments, local government associations, individual cities and councils, and we are very much a kind of politically led organisation. We focus, just like the Commonwealth, on that kind of dynamic between democracy and development, and in our case we have a strong focus on democracy and development at the local level. And we've been talking quite a bit today about the COVID-19 pandemic, and I think one area where local government really has been right on the front line is in terms of the COVID pandemic. And I do think a few of the issues that I'm going to raise in this presentation have really come to the fore as a result of that. Not that they were not there in the past, but I think they've been further highlighted as issues during that period. I want to talk a little bit about our work in the sort of political sphere, and then a little bit about our work on local economic development. I'll be very, very quick. So one of the things that we focus on is supporting women leaders and enabling women leaders. So we've been developing a kind of network within our organization to bring together existing leaders, but also to try and attract young leaders, young women leaders into the political sphere. We've been working on issues that you might consider the kind of systemic challenges, the systemic barriers to women coming into politics, coming into leadership, whether that's political parties, whether that's the financing agenda, or whether that's really having the capacity and the confidence to kind of step up into that role. And actually in many countries, whether you see women role models in your community. So I think, all of those issues. And also we focused on some of the wider kind of global challenges of ensuring women's equal representation and gender equality. And I think that third point that I made in terms of the kind of whether women see role models and whether there's support for women leaders also brings me a little bit to the work that we've been doing on local economic development. Because if you look at any kind of statistics, women can't go into local politics, they can't go into local leadership unless they have some kind of economic stability. So local economic development, looking at how local government can really support and enable local economic development is a sort of critical part, if you like, of the work that many of our local authorities are working on. And it's something that we've been prioritizing and we intend to be prioritizing further in this post-COVID period, because the emphasis has really been placed on how critical that is. One of the things we have been looking at is the relationship between local economic development and trade, and how supporting at the very local level, small businesses, small enterprises, as you mentioned, Noreen, to actually be part of that wider value chain around how countries trade, both nationally and regionally and internationally, is really critical. And of course, we've been working very hard to make sure that we don't forget the gender aspect of that work, and that we don't forget the challenges that women-led businesses still face in terms of that kind of work. So I want to touch a little bit on a couple of initiatives that we've been working specifically on. So we've been working specifically on activities to train and support counsellors, to give them skills and confidence to put themselves forward in a number of Commonwealth countries. We've been working quite a lot with local governments to understand the informal sector. I think when we're talking about economic development in the Commonwealth, in many of our cities and local governments, most women are active in the informal sector. They're not in big business, they're not in the multilaterals or the corporates. They're working in small and micro enterprises at the local level. And we know that governments, local governments, central governments can actually do more harm than they can do good. So actually looking at how we can support local governments to understand better and support very local businesses into the value chain is a critical part of our work. And things like procurement and the role of local government in procurement can play a very, very important role in that. And then maybe finally, we've been also looking at some of the issues which you've been talking about in some of the earlier presentations around digitalization and around the impact that COVID has had on the need for governments and business to be able to kind of pivot and to use some of the technology. And again, really just making sure that this is a technology that's appropriate and that everybody can access. So we've been doing a lot of work networking women in local economic development using very, very simple mobile phone technology, covering costs of things like airtime so that women can continue to network and to support each other. And maybe because I know we're very much under pressure for time, I just want to mention two things. You mentioned at the beginning, Arif, the role that the UK government has played in terms of supporting a whole range of Commonwealth organisations as part of its chair in office of the Commonwealth. And we were very pleased to be part of a programme which was led by the Westminster Foundation for Democracy, but also brought in the Commonwealth Local Government Forum and the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association to focus on this issue of political leadership and how we empower women to be involved in political leadership. And I just want to finish off, recognizing the support that the UK government has given, looking forward to the Commonwealth Summit and really thinking about how we can continue to keep these issues on the agenda in Rwanda. We're having a strong push around the important role of urbanization. We've seen urbanization very much come to the fore. We've seen rapid population growth. We know about the issues of climate change, and COVID has really further reinforced that importance of place. But I want to just leave everybody just with one statistic, one kind of piece of evidence that you and women have circulated today, which is to say that 43% of women and 53% of men globally think men make better leaders. So I think we all have to remember that this isn't just a women's issue, this is really a gender issue. And this is about how we all, through our respective networks, try and really keep the focus on the fact that we all have a role to play in change and in pushing so that, in 10 years' time, when we're celebrating International Women's Day, we can celebrate equality. There's no country in the Commonwealth where we can say that. There's only a third of Commonwealth countries where more than a third of the local government leaders are women. So we still have a big journey to go forward. So it's really great to celebrate the amazing things that are happening, but also we should use it to kind of really push ourselves forward. Thanks,
Lucy, thank you very much for that. And again, very powerful, the points you were making about on local government and local collaboration. And in fact, I mean, on political leadership, I mean, it's often not realized or acknowledged. We've never in the history of the Commonwealth, and Lucy will doubtless correct me, but I don't think we've ever had a serving head of government in every region at the same time. But that's what we have right now. We have in Namibia and in Africa, we have the Prime Minister who's a woman, and the same in Barbados, the same in Bangladesh, the same in New Zealand, in the Pacific, and of course in the UK, we did have at the time of the heads of government meeting, a woman Prime Minister, Theresa May. So we've never had that coincidence of women not as heads of state, but actually of heads of government, serving heads of government at the same time, at least one in every region, which is a bit of a milestone. I mean, that's never happened before, but I mean, there's obviously much more work to be done. And I think it was a great link, if I may say, Lucy, with what Guy was also touching upon earlier, and also Jane to an extent as well, the way that stereotypes can kind of reinforce those things, and how much more work needs to be done on that. So we've now, in one sense, we've completed part of what we were going to do, but we've also need to have a bit of a party in a nice possible way. So in the remaining few minutes, no more than 5 to 8 minutes, I know we're almost at time, but I know it's 5 o'clock and the sun is shining, and we still got a bit more time to get our fresh air. But I'd just like to turn across to the celebratory part a little bit to an extent, because we have some key announcements to make. So I'm going to pass first to Janet. Janet Geddes from Innovate UK. Now, Janet and I were just together about an hour or so ago as part of Innovate UK's celebration for International Women's Day. And as the UK's lead innovation agency, I'm delighted to have Janet join us today, but also for an important message and announcement. So Janet, a warm welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Arif. So I will be brief again. It is the end of the day. I think I've run out of my words quota for the day almost as well. So hopefully I'll make some sense. So yes, I think I've got some exciting news to share. Firstly, I just wanted to talk a little bit about Innovate UK and our Women in Innovation campaign. So as Arif said, we are the UK government's innovation agency. We have the mandate to support businesses to develop new products and processes and services and get those into market through financial and non-financial support. And I look after our global programs. I've been in Innovate for about 7 years. So it's really exciting and interesting to hear, Noreen, what you were talking to, for example, around that. It'd be nice to touch base afterwards. We have a Women in Innovation program. This is a targeted intervention across the whole of the organization to address underrepresentation of women in innovation. So I think, Noreen, you talked to some of the statistics about why it matters. We found in 2016 that only 1 in 7 of applications to Innovate UK were led by women. So we didn't think that was good enough. In 2019, the British Business Bank came up with a report that said for, 1 pence of every pound of venture capital funding invested goes to female founded teams, and that's compared to 89 pence of every pound to male founded teams. So there is underrepresentation. Secondly, I know you all know this, but it matters to the bottom line. It enhances performance and success. So companies whose executive teams are in the top quartile for gender diversity are 25% more likely to outperform their peers. I mean, that's considerable. Then there's the Rose Review stat that Noreen spoke to about the 250 billion pounds of potential new value that could be created if women start new businesses at the same rate. And lastly, we know that discrimination is a problem. We have AI biases within systems or in data that then present in real world situations, in facial recognition technology, in recruitment. So through this campaign, what we're trying to do is provide a spotlight and a platform for this issue to be discussed. At the same time, we actually support a cohort of businesses, women women businesses, women innovators every year through financial and non-financial support. And I'm very pleased to say that today, as part of our separate Women Innovation Programme, we announced the 40 women that we will be supporting this year, and that report is publicly available. But great news, as a partner, I wanted to officially launch the Commonwealth Women Entrepreneurs Summit that will be happening on the 21st and 22nd of April, which some of you might remember is Her Majesty the Queen's birthday, and is also International Girls in ICT Day. I think what's going to make the summit different, it's going to be one of, is being the first global event to focus on some of the kind of the most current and hottest growing areas of innovation.
Thank you, everybody, and happy International Women's Day, and definitely happy Commonwealth Day for launching us off. I will take you a little bit back. I'll talk about our e-market platform. It's going to be a big part of the Commonwealth Women Entrepreneurs Summit. So as the pandemic hit in 2020, and Lucy rightfully said that obviously the majority of women are the ones that are running micro and small-sized businesses. And we saw a surge in the closure of businesses, run by women. Our mission being to connect, collaborate, and cause commerce between our women. Our biggest task is how do the women continue to connect, collaborate, and do commerce and put money in the pocket. So the e-market idea was really a no-brainer, and I'm very excited that our ICT director, Rachel, is joined us. So we embarked on developing the first e-market in the Commonwealth, developed by women for women. And in November of 2020, we launched the e-market. It ran for 6 days. It's a pilot e-market, ran for 6 days. And in the 6 days, we hosted 1,000 guests from 47 counties of Kenya and 6 countries. So we had exhibitors from 6 countries represented for 6 days. We saw a surge of visitors on our online platform to the feet of 50,000 in terms of traffic. The exhibition was free. It was funded by APSA and DTB banks. The findings were that 70% of the users had never been on an e-market platform. So we had to have a whole onboarding process to even help them know how to take quality photos, how to upload them, how to have content that will draw buyers onto their sites. And 70% of users accessed the platform on using mobile. So that's very important information. During the interviews, it was very clear that by 100% that all the exhibitors needed the platform. In fact, the biggest problem was why are they only on the platform for 6 days? So we look forward to obviously taking this platform on. We are now working with Rachel, the ICT director, on upgrading this platform so that we're able to take it onto World Lab platform where Commonwealth Business Women Network sits with Jen and AWEP at the moment to target the bigger audience. So that will be it will relaunch on 21st of April in time for the Commonwealth Women Entrepreneurs Summit, and we look forward to that. Anything else, Arif?
So the two short messages from
Oh, fantastic. We had the pleasure of having Her Excellency Jane Marriott, the British High Commission of Kenya, send us a goodwill message as we launch the Commonwealth Women Entrepreneurs. I'm delighted that today is a double celebration as we mark both International Women's Day and Commonwealth Day. As we choose to challenge discrimination against women, initiatives that give women the chance to chart their own path. The 2021 Commonwealth Women's Entrepreneurship Summit is one of the ways countries can be a part of the change by creating a strong business environment for female entrepreneurs. Today, we celebrate their success and those who challenge the status quo and champion inclusivity. Her Excellence Jane Marriott, British High Commissioner to Kenya.
Yeah. So she was the first woman in 60 years to be High Commissioner, and she's the current serving High Commissioner.
From Nigeria. Is she here to read the second message from the US ambassador?
I can't see Ngozi here, but if Ngozi is here, she's able to come forward and give that message. In the absence of Ngozi, perhaps if you could just briefly, thank you.
This is a message from His Excellence Eric Nidler. He is the current acting ambassador to Kenya. And he says, I quote, "Congratulations to the Commonwealth Women's Entrepreneurship Summit for convening on the important topic of women's entrepreneurship, appropriately launched on International Women's Day." End quote. Back to you, Arif.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, we won't take up more time, but he highlighted the importance of women's lack of access to finance, the importance of digital skills, and went on to say that the impact of women during COVID-19 has highlighted the urgency of this. So I've kind of paraphrased what he said in a slightly more elaborate way, but we'll be putting these statements up on the enterprise, on the entrepreneurship site that's actually also gone up. I just want to close by highlighting one example, just one amongst many, or from Commonwealth organizations. This is the Commonwealth Association of Science, Technology and Mathematics Educators that's been doing some great work, particularly in Bangladesh in early years, preschool children in early years, and seeing how much science, maths, engineering they do in the everyday, and supporting them. So I'll put their link up as well. But as we begin to bring things together, I'm just going to at this stage, I mean, we've had a full hour, we've just gone over our hour, but I just want to, simply say, it's been, a very full session, and I'm just having a quick glance at chat to see whether there are any immediate comments or questions. I mean, I think what I'll do is I'll just give each of the panelists an opportunity to maybe close with a final closing message, and before we close off for our sessions right now. So maybe I'll just begin in the order in which we had them this afternoon. Maybe in your closing message, maybe also if you want to pick up on an observation, if you're very welcome to, and anything else you've heard. But in any case, I'll just go back to the panel which we had them earlier today, and I'll invite first of all Guy Parker, Chief Executive of the Advertising Standards Authority in the UK, to make a final closing statement. Guy.
Thank you very much, Arif. It's been fascinating hearing everyone talk about all the important work that's going on in this space. And just very quickly from me, obviously I'm here if anyone wants to find out more about the work we've done on gender stereotyping, but also something I didn't mention when I did my presentation was that we began last year a very similar project looking at racial and ethnic stereotyping in advertising. So that's the next big project of that sort that we've got ongoing. But thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Guy. We'll certainly, as we said earlier, we'll try and sort of bring this together at a Commonwealth level, but your important work on gender stereotyping, which I think has real traction. So thank you very much for that. Jane.
Yeah, so thank you. It's just been fascinating listening to everyone. I was reflecting on all the golden threads that unite us really on this whole topic of sort of gender balance, and how that impacts sort of the various life journeys. So really just to say thank you very much. Very happy to pick up any questions, and there's a couple of you I'm definitely going to follow up with if that's okay, but also just to let everyone know that I'm using this framework and looking also at Black lives, and have also looked at some of the specifics to do with female entrepreneurship, so very happy to catch up on that. But thank you very much for inviting me. And it's all about the life journey, isn't it, in the future? So
absolutely, Jane. So thank you very much for that. And a lot of those links that both you and Guy were referring to have been up on chat, so people can access them later. But thank you so much for that. Let's go next to Noreen. Noreen, any final comment or closing statement from yourself?
Yes, thank you very much. It has been a pleasure speaking here, and I do apologize if I've just thrown a whole load of statistics and initiatives and programs at you. But as you can see, there are programs being carried out across the Commonwealth and in the UK, and there is progress happening, not as much as we'd like to see. We still have far much more to go across all areas. I will be delighted to hook up. I've been making notes whilst you've all been speaking, and some of us have already reached out. So please feel free to connect on LinkedIn, and let's carry this conversation on afterwards. I will just say something that, as I mentioned, OIT will be opening up soon. We have set up an email address. If anybody wants to share and find out more about how we'll work, please get in touch on that as well. So thank you very much.
I mean, let me just say, Noreen, what we'll do is when we've got the recording is available a bit later, we'll put up the recording with links to various reports and websites and stuff. So we'll make sure that's up on our YouTube and highlight that, certainly up to the summit, during and beyond. So thank you for that, Noreen.
Thank you very much.
Lucy Slack, my great partner in crime, I say in the nicest possible way, because we're also another accredited organisation or one of the Commonwealth family. But Lucy, any closing comment from you?
I'd just like to really reiterate what everyone else has said in terms of the kind of common threads. And I think particularly one of the things that we're quite keen to do is to kind of like slightly break down some of the misconceptions that exist between business and government. And I think, and business and local government. And I think that there's a lot that we could do collectively to really address that. And I think it's one area where, often it does throw up particular challenges for women, not exclusively for women, just generally. And I think it is something Arif and others around the table that we'd be really interested in looking at in more detail with you.
Yeah. So let me just, thank you very much, Lucy. Let me just close with this comment, and to all of you really, and to remind it to all of us, we've never had in the history of the Commonwealth a heads of government meeting hosted in a country which ranks top in the world in 6 of the 10 metrics that the World Economic Forum uses, whether it's girls in school, whether it's women in employment, whether it's women in cabinet, whether it's members of parliament. And of course, I'm referring to Rwanda. And Rwanda have made it very clear that when they assume the role of chair, they want this to be a gender, a real push on gender. So this agenda on gender is here. It's now, it's for all of us. And I'd just like to thank all of you. Guy Parker, thank you very much for joining us. Jane Porters, Noreen Cesaro, Lucy Slack, Nana Wanjao as well. All of you and all of the people that have stayed back to listen to some great regulars here. I can see Malcolm and Nosheen and others as well that have been with us, and Rachel. Thank you all very much. On this very important day, both International Women's Day and Commonwealth Day. Let's rejoice, but let's not be complacent. Thank you very much. Stay safe, stay well, and stay happy.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone, and bye-bye. Happy International Women's Day and Commonwealth Day.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Stephanie.